You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Now let's be optimistic for a moment. Let's hope that he does return. What does he bring if Donnie Freeman returns to the court for Syracuse basketball? I think that this would be fantastic for the Orange. We already talked about his numbers in the first segment, but I think it goes beyond just that. If Donnie Freeman returns for this team in the coming days, I mean, forget the Duke game. We'll talk about that in a moment. But if he comes back, let's say before Saturday, I think that drastically improves Syracuse's chances of making the ACC tournament. He's going to give Syracuse more scoring. Even though he hasn't been a good defender, like I said in the first segment, I think he would be better in a zone. He provides rebounding as well, decent enough shooting. 33% from the three-point line. I mean, I would prefer that Donnie Freeman plays more inside the paint and in the mid-range because he's better there. But 33% for a guy who's 6'9", playing the 4 is pretty respectable. Do I want him shooting 5 3-pointers a game? No, but 1 or 2 a game? Sure. That's reasonable, so he can provide a little bit more floor spacing for Syracuse basketball. Now, as it stands right now, the Orange are 1.5 games up on Boston College and NC State, who are the first teams out of the ACC tournament. Syracuse is 4-7. Boston College and NC State are currently 2-8. Also, Virginia is behind Syracuse at 3-8. Now, with or without Donnie Freeman, okay, even if best case scenario, we find out tomorrow or Wednesday that he's going to suit up, he's going to play against Duke. I'm going to let you all in a little secret. I think Syracuse basketball is still going to get its butt kicked by Duke, even if Donnie Freeman's on the floor. I don't think it's going to matter. Now, I'd love to be wrong, but I think it's fair to assume that Syracuse is not going to beat Duke on Wednesday, barring a miracle, which they can happen. Miracles have happened before. I mean, the miracle on ice, when a group of college kids decided to beat the best team in the world. But for all intents and purposes, I don't think Syracuse is beating Duke, with or without Donnie Freeman. Now, we can talk about the next couple of games after that, which are going to be very important for Syracuse basketball. You got Boston College at home on Saturday, and then you got Miami in a few days after that on the road. I think with Donnie Freeman, if he were to come back before that stretch, he gives the Orange a much better chance of sweeping Miami and Boston College. And if Syracuse were to sweep that stretch, if they sweep Miami and Boston College, I'll tell you right now, they're going to get in the ACC tournament. They are in. It's over. The reason why I say that is because not only does Syracuse get to 6 conference wins, which could be enough in of itself, but also you're giving Miami a bottom feeder another loss, and you're giving Boston College another loss. It's a 2-game swing right there against both teams. So they're very important games for Syracuse basketball. And if Donnie Freeman can return before those 2 contests, he gives the Orange a better chance of sweeping, which I think is a reasonable expectation even without Donnie Freeman. And the Orange essentially put themselves in the ACC tournament. He would also give Syracuse a better chance of putting themselves in a better position in the ACC tournament. I've talked about before here on this podcast that I think the high-end ceiling of what to expect of the high-end ceiling, a reasonable expectation for Syracuse basketball moving forward is they get themselves in the top 9 of the ACC. Because if they get in the top 9 in the ACC, at least they don't have to win 5 games in 5 days. It becomes 4 games in 4 days. Doesn't sound like much, but does anyone want to play 5 games in 5 days? Do people really want to do that? Do you really want to play that extra game against that 15 seed if you get the 10? No, right? You don't want that. You would much prefer to be in the top 9. I mean, they're not going to be in the top 4. They're not going to get the double bye where they would only have to win 3 games in 3 days, but could they be in the top 9? Probably going to need Donnie Freeman for that to happen. I mean, he would give them a better chance to pull off some upsets like North Carolina, like Pitt, SMU. I don't think Syracuse is beating those teams if they don't have Donnie Freeman. But if they do have Donnie Freeman, they have a better chance. So not only does he most likely put them in the conference tournament if he were to come back, but he also gives them an outside possibility that they finish top 9 in the ACC, which would mean they would only have to win 4 games in 4 days to make the ACC tournament. Bottom line, if Donnie Freeman were to come back to Syracuse basketball in relatively short order, that would be terrific news for Syracuse basketball. And I hope that we get a positive update in the next couple of days from Adrian Autry and Syracuse basketball.